Okay, how's it going, everybody? So we're gonna read here on this is chapter 4. This is on guerrilla warfare by Mao Zedong. Let's go ahead and get into this. This is can victory be attained by guerrilla operations? So let's go ahead. I think this is a short chapter, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a few pages. Yeah, very few pages. This will be a shorter one. Guerrilla hostilities are but one phase of the war of resistance against Japan, and the answer to the question of whether or not they can produce ultimate victory can be given only after investigation and comparison of all elements of our own strength with those of the enemy. The particulars of such a comparison are several. First, the strong Japanese bandit nation is an absolute monarchy. During the course of her invasion of China, she had made comparative progress in the techniques of industrial production and in the development of excellence and skill in her army, navy, and air force. But in spite of this industrial progress, she remains an absolute monarchy of inferior physical endowments. Her manpower, her raw materials, and her financial resources are all inadequate and insufficient to maintain her in protracted warfare, or to meet the situation presented by a war prosecuted over a vast area. Added to this is the anti-war feeling now manifested by the Japanese people, a feeling that is shared by the junior officers and, more extensively, by the soldiers of the invading army. Furthermore, China is not Japan's only enemy. Japan is unable to employ her entire strength in the attack on China. She cannot at most spare more than 1,000,000 men for this purpose, as she must hold any in excess of that number for use against other possible opponents. Because of these important primary considerations, the invading Japanese bandits can hope neither to be victorious in a protracted struggle nor to conquer a vast area. Their strategy must be one of lightning war and speedy decision. If we can hold out for 3 or more years, it will be most difficult for Japan to bear up under the strain. In the war, the Japanese brigands must depend upon lines of communication linking the principal cities as routes for the transport of war materials. The most important considerations for her are that her rear be stable and peaceful, and that her lines of communication be intact. It is not to her advantage to wage war over a vast area with disrupted lines of communication. She cannot disperse her strength and fight in a number of places, and her greatest fears are thus eruptions in her rear and disruption of her lines of communication. If she can maintain communications, she will be able, at will, to concentrate powerful forces speedily at strategic points to engage our organized units in decisive battle. Another important Japanese objective is to profit from the industries, finances, and manpower in captured areas, and with them to augment her own insufficient strength. Certainly, it is not to her advantage to forego these benefits, nor to be forced to dissipate her energies in a type of warfare in which the gains will not compensate for the losses. It is for these reasons that guerrilla warfare conducted in each bit of conquered territory over a wide area will be a heavy blow struck at the Japanese bandits. Experience in the 5 northern provinces, as well as in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Anhui, has absolutely established the truth of this assertion. China is a country half colonial and half feudal. It is a country that is politically, militarily, and economically backward. This is an inescapable conclusion. It is a vast country with great resources and tremendous population. A country in which the terrain is complicated and the facilities for communication are poor. All these factors favor a protracted war. They all favor the application of mobile warfare and guerrilla operations. The establishment of innumerable anti-Japanese bases behind the enemy's lines will force him to fight unceasingly in many places at once, both to his front and his rear. He thus endlessly expends his resources. We must unite the strength of the army with that of the people. We must strike the weak spots in the enemy's flanks, in his front, and his rear. We must make war everywhere and cause dispersal of his forces and dissipation of his strength. Thus the time will come when a gradual change will become evident in the relative position of ourselves and our enemy. And when that day comes, it will be the beginning of our ultimate victory over the Japanese. Although China's population is great, it is unorganized. This is a weakness which must be taken into account. The Japanese bandits have invaded our country, not merely to conquer territory, but to carry out the violent, rapacious, and murderous policy of their government, which is the extinction of the Chinese race. For this compelling reason, we must unite the nation without regard to parties or classes, and follow our policy of resistance to the end. China today is not the China of old. It is not like Abyssinia. China today is at the point of her greatest historical progress. The standards of literacy among the masses have been raised. The rapprochement of communists and nationalists has laid the foundation for an anti-Japanese war front that is constantly being strengthened and expanded. Government, army, and people are all working with great energy. The raw material resources and the economic strength of the nation are waiting to be used. The unorganized people is becoming an organized nation. These energies must be directed towards the goal of protracted war. So that, should the Japanese occupy much of our territory, or even most of it, we shall still gain final victory. Not only must those behind our lines organize for resistance, but also those who live in Japanese-occupied territory in every part of the country. The traitors who accept the Japanese as fathers are few in number, and those who have taken oath that they would prefer death to abject slavery are many. If we resist with this spirit, what enemy can we not conquer, and who could say that ultimate victory will not be ours? The Japanese are waging a barbaric war along civilized lines. For that reason, Japanese of all classes oppose the policies of their government, as do vast international groups. On the other hand, because China's cause is righteous, our countrymen of all classes and parties are united to oppose the invader. We have sympathy in many foreign countries, including even Japan itself. This is perhaps the most important reason why Japan will lose and China will win. The progress of the war for the emancipation of the Chinese people will be in accord with these facts. The guerrilla war of resistance will be in accord with these facts, and that guerrilla operations correlated with those of our regular forces will produce victory in the conviction of the many patriots who devote their entire strength to guerrilla hostilities. Okay, yeah. Well, thank y'all for tuning in. This is you can follow me online: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, and Medium. Hit me up there, Marxist. Y'all follow me there. Y'all have a great day, and Dodada Goi.